in any clinical presentation of possible GI malignancy, we should be familiar with our anatomy because presentation or disease um, diagnosis, no, really the anatomy helps, and even the treatment. Later on, as we go on discussing on GI malignancy, the location of our tumors is also a prognostic and therapeutic, more of um, the clinical decisions, no, is needed. So in esophageal carcinoma, we know that based on our histology, pathology, no, the anatomy involves like different histologic subtypes, no. We have the squamous cell carcinoma, which can most commonly, of course, presentation on the cervical esophagus, no. So this would be from the upper and middle third, no, of our esophagus. Then the adenocarcinoma will be on the thoracic esophagus or near our stomach junction, no? Esophageal gastroesophageal junction. So usually in incidence, um, um, esophageal is most common in the Middle Eastern and Asians. If Caucasian, usually in the blacks. The more of these presented are in the male population, averaging at 50 years old. Lower socioeconomic status was commonly noted, and usually our head and neck cancers will have concomitant esophageal. Why? Because usually these head and neck tumors are squamous, no, in histology, which is more similar with esophageal, um, especially in the upper and middle third, no. So noted in its etiology that there's aneuploidy and p53 mutations causing the dysplastic epithelium. And good to note, no, because of its presentation or treatment options, 15% of the adenocarcinoma of the esophageal, meaning the lower third of your esophagus, may present with HER2 new um, uh, changes, no? So meaning they are can be treated with our anti-HER2 medications. So what are the risk factors? No, they've noted that excessive alcohol consumption is one, probably increased acid erosions to our esophagus, of course, cigarette smoking, or our ingestion of our carcinogens, our nitrates, or this from our barbecues, no, and smoke opiates and fungal toxins in your pickled vegetables. And you most likely that's why Asian is high because of mucosal damage, no, from physical agents, from drinking hot tea all the time, no, the Chinese, or a lye ingestion, or radiation-induced strictures from previous treatment, and have for patients who have chronic achalasia. And probably host susceptibility from the aneuploidy or the p53 mutations. Some of these patients may have esophageal web glucitis and iron deficiency or syndromes, or they may have congenital hyperkeratosis from your tylosis palmaris et plantaris, or deficiencies of your selenium, zinc, and vitamin A. No? But of course, the deficiencies are probably low in incidence. So, what are the etiologic factors for the adenocarcinoma of the esophagus, meaning the lower third um, of your esophagus, no? So, mostly these are caused by your chronic esophageal reflux. So, remember, your in your stomach, diba, the release of your acid, no, in the cardia, causing reflux, or esophagitis. Chronic esophagitis may cause this dysplastic changes in the transition zone of your esophagus to your stomach. Obesity, of course, because when you're obese, you might have chronic esophageal reflux. In patients who have Barrett's esophagus, male, in incidence, and of course, cigarette smoking, because cigarette smoking may increase your acidic content also, then of course causes changes in your epithelium. So what are the clinical factors? Usually in distribution, 75, most of this esophageal carcinoma, 75%, 75 of 100 will be in the lower esophagus, usually middle in the 20, and 5 in the upper, no? So patient may present with your progressive dysphagia and weight loss, and usually most common presentation is difficulty swallowing, no? More than 60% of these patients. They may have adenophagia and presentation of spread, no? Because probably long-term presentation, no, to lymph nodes, your supraclavicular area, or mediastinal presentation, or metastasis right away to your liver and lung and pleura and to the bones. And some of these patients might have like a small cell kind of presentation, or the squamous will have paraneoplastic type of presentation, no? So they may present with your hypercalcemia from your PTH peptide-like presentation. So how do you diagnose? So simple, of course, difficulty swallowing. You have your esophagoscopy and CT scan of the neck, chest, and whole abdomen with contrast. So why this extensive? Because you want to know the anatomy, the origin. Sometimes when you look into the esophagoscopy, you cannot anymore go through the middle or the lower because of probably the extension of your tumor. So that's why your neck, chest, and whole abdomen will help a lot, no, in preparing patient for possible surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy based on the extension of the tumors. So, of course, our primary treatment, the earlier we can treat them, of course, surgery is our primary treatment. Then we have our um, followed by concurrent chemotherapy with radiation. So all these available, of course, if you cannot operate them right away because maybe probably they're very big, or you cannot achieve a good margin, you can subject patient to concurrent chemotherapy with radiation prior to um, prior to surgery. Then you can give the adjuvant chemotherapy later on. So decision making on the treatment really rests on how big is your tumor, no? So T3 with nodal involvement, probably you would like to have chemotherapy with radiation therapy, no, because of its extension, and then probably have additional chemotherapy later on. So for cancer of the stomach, so as we go down, no, like I said, the lower esophagus is 75, no, of the esophageal, and it presents already with adenocarcinoma. So for the stomach, 85% are, of course, adenocarcinoma, and they may be diffuse or intestinal type. So if diffuse type of presentation, these will have no discrete mass. Your stomach will be described as a linis plastica and involved in the cardia of the stomach. Usually, these patients are very young and have very poor prognosis, no, because of its presentation, no. The intestinal type of adenocarcinoma, usually the ulcerative, usually in the antrum of your stomach and the lesser curvature, and usually have a long precancerous state, usually associated with your H. pylori infection. So, if you recall your physiology in your anatomy of your stomach, di ba? The acids, no, pool in your antrum and your pyloric area. So patient may have an and off ulcerative symptoms, no? So that's why patients who have chronic ulcers are subject to esophagoscopy, um, then biopsy the ulcerative type, because it can be a precursor, no, a precancerous state, no, for the ulcerative lesions for the intestinal type of adenocarcinoma. 15% of these tumors are lymphomas, no? So not invasive in nature, but they may have thickened uh, type, no, a diffuse type of presentation, or the gastrointestinal stromal tumors, no, the GIST is also one of the um, uh, pathologic diagnosis you can have, or the sarcomas, no, which are aggressive. So if you review, no, the anatomy, you can see that there's associated genetic factors on each area of our stomach. So you can have in your cardia, in your GA junctions, most of these mutations are from your CDH1, no, or your ROA or CLDN18, RGAP fusion. You can have also from your chromosomal instability, your intestinal histology, TP53 mutation, and the RAS activation in your pathway. Since in the body, no, so same in the antrum, chromosomal instability. If you can see here, the red ones are high in the body, we have EBV, no, or a PIK3K mutation, or immune cell signaling type, no. Then here in the antrum, it's more diverse because you have your blue one now, the MSI, no, which are hypermutation and mitotic pathways, and though your body also may present with MSI. So understanding this gives us a more or less a treatment options, no, availability, because some of these genetic mutations will have corresponding treatment, right? So but of course, as long as it's not metastatic, it's localized, you can do the usual chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, no. But of course, when you have advanced type of gastric cancer and metastatic na siya, so you can have these options later on. So incidence usually common in Asia, no, Japan, China, and found in the low socioeconomic status. So what are the risk factors and incidence? So usually same thing with your esophagus and down to your colon are nitrites, no, exposure. So um, you can have also bacterially contaminated food, or your chronic Helicobacter pylori infection for chronic ulcerative presentation, no? Or endogenous factors, you can have a decreased gastric acidity, or you have prior surgery, or atrophic gastritis and pernicious anemia, or prolonged exposure to your H2 receptor antagonist. Clinically, these patients present with abdominal discomfort, early satiety, no, if ever they spread already, you can have the nodules on your ovary, the Krukenberg tumors, or in the periumbilical region, your sister Mary Joseph node, or peritoneal cul-de-sac, the Bloomer shelves, no? Palpable on your rectal and vaginal examination, and presents with malignant ascites. So liver is the most common site for your hematogenous spread, and usually IgA in man is present with positive occult blood test. Question: what is the um, enzyme released in your stomach that can contribute to your anemia? Very important for combination of our iron absorption.
Is that
Ferrochelatase daw?
What else? What can you...
Intrinsic factor, Doc.
Very good, no? The intrinsic factor. So the intrinsic factor is very important, no, in absorption and release from your stomach. That's why chronically, if patient have mass, aside from the bleeding, no, of course, the slow ulcerative presentation might cause small bleeding, but the involvement of your intrinsic factor can lead to, no, anemia in these patients. So very important question, no? So usually common question, that's a common question. I remember that came out in the board exam. The intrinsic factor. Okay. So in the diagnosis, of course, like I said, extension of the tumor is very important. So we use here the TNM staging for our gastric cancers. If you can see that survival rates are very low if are noted in the stage 4 and even in stage 3 disease, no? Most of our patients already present with stage 2 and stage 3. So if you can look at into the survival, no, very low already, 29%, 15%, even if with uh, early detection, no, surgery, and treatment, no, surgery, chemoradiation, and chemotherapy. So far, the gastric cancers I've seen were stage 4, no, usually elderly male. So I have two young patients um, at stage 2. They underwent chemoradiation, um, uh, followed by surgery, no? After 2 years, they have recurrence, no, in the liver. So very poor survival, really. So always remember that when TNM staging for your gastric, for your GI, really looks into the mucosa, the extension to the muscularis propria, or um, uh, already to your serosa, no? Or a lymph node presentation. So always just remember that in describing the tumor extension, no? So, of course, treatment, surgery. Japan has very nice surgery of gastric. They have the D2 uh, lymph node, no, extension surgery. It have greater survival, no, if you can do the D2. So our surgeons really try their best to harvest as much lymph node, no, during gastric surgery. Of course, if during your surgery, when you read the surgical uh, probably side effects, no, surgical complications, no, of a gastric surgery, you would see there the dumping syndrome, very familiar. Of course, patient cannot anymore digest, no, their food properly. So they have to eat small, easily digestible food so that it will not have problems GI wise. No, of course, the role of um, systemic chemotherapy. I mentioned about radiation therapy because for tumors found in the antrum, we do give radiation because of the idea that it could have probably affected the esophageal region, no? Um, sorry, cardiac. So that area will have a good prognostic, no, if given with radiation therapy. But for the pyloric area, usually if you have good surgery or segmental gastrectomy, then you can have your systemic chemotherapy then. Siguro one thing ano lang the chemotherapy we use um is more or less like example for we can use CLOX, no, meaning capecitabine and oxaliplatin, which can be used also with colon cancer, no. So almost because of the same adenocarcinoma histology, intestinal type, no. So we can use the same chemotherapy protocol, but for for the cardia esophageal, we use more of the idea of the uh, squamous transition to adeno. So we use cisplatin, no, 5-fluorouracil and your docetaxel, which more or less same treatment with your um, esophageal cancers. No, so um, if during probably for exam purposes, what thing important is I will not go into details what type of therapy, no, probably what are the options for these patients. Okay, so primary gastric lymphoma. If primary gastric lymphoma is your histologic diagnosis, usually your stomach is the most frequent extranodal site, no, of your lymphoma. And usually deeper tissue for biopsy is needed. So especially lymphoma will have a very clean, no, non-ulcerative type of presentation, no, and no mass, no, be seen. So a deeper tissue, probably reaching your muscularis propria, is much advised, no? So usually what we ask our um, enterologist, no, to have a deeper cut or go with surgery, no, is a better diagnosis. But of course, lymphoma is not treated with surgery unless it will cause problems, no? So the histopathology will range from a well-differentiated type of gastric mild to poorly differentiated high-grade lymphoma. And usually, um, we do chemotherapy, which is the most like treatment, and do subtotal gastrectomy for the area is affected because it cannot anymore release like acid or any juices, so to prevent local recurrence. So, and we cannot do radiation in the area, so we do subtotal gastrectomy lang. So usually it has concomitant H. pylori infection. So the treatment of H. pylori may reduce inflammation. Di ba? Lymphoma is more of inflammation state. So when you treat your H. pylori, it can have also response, no? So sometimes if you have a lack of response of it, it's associated already with a chromosomal instability or abnormality. So the gastric sarcoma, usually these are the leiomyosarcomas or the GIST, no? The gastrointestinal type tumors. So usually this comprises 1 to 3% of your gastric neoplasms and involve your anterior and posterior walls of the gastric fundus and easily spread to your liver and lungs, no? So the treatment of choice really basta sarcoma is really surgery, um, uh, because these are not sensitive to chemotherapy, but because of their mutation in your c-KIT receptor, we can give your oral tyrosine kinase inhibitor, your imatinib, usually 400 to 800 milligrams PO daily, no? I remember I have a patient who had a GIST, no, with a metastatic GIST. Of course, metastatic, we don't do any more surgery. He's still alive, no? After how many years are we together? Probably more than 5 years, no? He has metastatic to the liver and lungs. So he was on imatinib on and off because like he feels fatigue because he's a 65-year-old already, and he feels fatigue, so he stopped, then progressed, then he's go back to imatinib, no? So very in even though it's stage 4 for them, it's really controllable, no? So I will not say treatable, no? It's controllable because that's a different terminology in malignancies, no? Controllable and treatable. So usually for those patients who have refractory to imatinib, they will have to receive sunitinib or regorafenib as second line option. So let's go to colon cancer. So I think I asked somebody to lecture colon cancer. Okay. So most colorectal cancers arise from your polyps, no? So these are an anatomy, your adenomatous polyp, and usually you can um, uh, have it can present with a pre-malignant lesion, no? Very screenable, meaning if you have high risk, if you are high risk, you can have easy like breast cancer, you can have your mammography. For colon cancer, you can have your screening early, no? You have colonoscopy. Because some of these adenomatous polyps you find, you can have early detection for them, no? So these adenomatous polyps are found in the colon in 30% of your middle age and 50% of your elderly population. So usually, you can have occult blood in the stool from your polyps, no? But usually found in less than 5% of these patients. So if these polyps are um, um, invasive cancers, no, usually these are the sessile type or the serrated type of polyps. Or you may have the adenomatous polyps, meaning a pre-malignant lesion, can present with a tubular or villous or tubulovillous, no? So some of the villous adenomas, most of which are sessile, become malignant more than your tubular adenomas, no? So when we have patients on a positive occult test, no, on our screening, then we do colonoscopy. Then if you found a polyp, then you have to differentiate it from a tubular or papillary or a sessile serrated type of polyps that is described, no, That's what you look into the report of your gastroenterologist. So the invasion type, no, probably the size of the polyps. If less than 1.5 cm, it's okay, no, very negligible lesion. But if your lesion is 2.5 cm already, that's very substantial and can be really malignant later on. So what are the risk factors? Um, Still, no, diet high in animal fat, no, are nitrites or hereditary syndromes, meaning from Lynch, the polyposis syndrome, the MYH-associated polyposis, or your inflammatory bowel disease, or exposure to Streptococcus bovis bacteria. So the polyposis coli, no, these are familial polyposis of the colon, which is a very rare condition that have an appearance of thousands of your polyps throughout your large bowel. And usually these patients will have deletion in the long arm of your chromosome 5, the APC gene. And this can be both neoplastic or normal. It depends on, diba, remember the explanation we had in the first meeting that you have an initiation, promotion, before it become a malignant lesion. So your APC gene make it a neoplastic somatic mutation, meaning only in the gene, but cannot be expressed yet. No, so probably there's uh, a promoter that can lead these patients to malignancy. So usually these as early as 25 years old, you have already evident of these thousands of polyps in your large bowel. So usually if these polyps are not surgically treated, your colorectal cancer will develop by age 40, no? So it will progress now, the polyps. Management can early for prevention, they gave NSAIDs or your COX-2, or if it's really thousands and occupy a large amount of your large bowel, then these patients will have to undergo colectomy. Of course, they have to weigh options of malignancy and um, uh, complications from your colectomy, no? Because you cannot anymore absorb water, diarrhea, nutrition, no? So all that. So it has to be weighed which of these patients will really have to undergo colectomy. Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay. So usually the hereditary non-polyposis colon cancer usually characterized by your, if you have familial, no, 3 or more relatives with histologically documented colorectal cancers. So one of whom is first degree. So example, your dad, no, have colon cancer, your the brother of your dad, no, or the grandfather, your grandfather has colon cancer. So uh so more likely you're looking into hereditary type of colon cancer. Or if your family, one of your family is diagnosed below 50, no? So um it is post for a hereditary component. But if it's like 65, then only like your dad, the chances it is hereditary is very low. But of course, screening, no, still good, no? It doesn't excuse you for the screening. Um, if your colorectal cancer involves 2 generations, no, meaning your dad and your grandfather, no, so have colon cancer, so it's more or likely hereditary type. So usually this arise in your proximal large bowel. So proximal, so near after your appendix, no, that's proximal large bowel already. So median age of appearance of your adenocarcinoma is less than 50 years old, and 10 to 15 years younger in the general population, no? So now the later in the screening, we lowered the colonoscopy, or I mentioned last time, no, in the screening, that colonoscopy is lowered now to 45 years old, no, because of high incidence in the at 45 to 50. So usually, these are poorly differentiated, mucinous histologic appearance, no? These proximal colon tumors has a better prognosis than sporadic, no? Meaning, uh, if these patients are treated early, it has better prognosis, no? Meaning, if you can detect them early, if you can do surgery, even though they are poorly differentiated mucinous type, it has good prognosis than the sporadic, which can be detected late, though even though well differentiated, but detected late, so it has bad prognosis, no? So, early recognition is very important. So, families with your hereditary non-polyposis usually have other malignancies in the family. Usually, the most common ovarian or endometrial carcinomas, especially for the women population, or appearance of your gastric cancer, small bowel genitourinary, your pancreaticobiliary, and your sebaceous skin tumors, no, has been associated well um, as presentation. Usually recommended for families to undergo your annual or biennial colonoscopy beginning at age 25 if you're really high risk factor. So usually what we do in the screening, of course, if you have patient at like 50 years old, no, colon cancer, so we traced, no, first the family history. So if high risk, of course we advise family to start already um, screening, and for women, include there the of the endometrial and ovarian screening. So you have pelvic ultrasound or endometrial biopsy for women. Okay, so I mentioned that inflammatory bowel disease is also a risk factor because, of course, long-standing inflammation can lead your initiator, promoter to a mutated site, no, of your cells, can lead to malignancy. So usually, this patient, remember your common inflammatory bowel disease, your Crohn's colitis or your ulcerative colitis, presenting with diarrhea, diba? On and off diarrhea or on and off diarrhea, constipation syndrome, and on colonoscopy, you note there a lot of area of colitis, no? So the risk of colorectal cancer um, is small in the initial 10 years, but then increased rate by 0.5 to 1% per year. So cancer may develop in 8 to 30% of patients after 25 years exposed on your IBD. So usually higher for younger patients who have pancolitis at presentation. So in patients with a history of inflammatory bowel disease lasting for more than 15 years, who continue to experience exacerbation, we advise surgical removal of your colon to reduce the risk of malignancies. Okay. Primary prevention. So they have look into chemopreventive strategies, no, like your breast cancer, no, tamoxifen, raloxifene. In colon cancer, they look into aspirin and other NSAIDs because your goal is to decrease inflammation, no, and suppress cell proliferation by inhibiting your prostaglandin synthesis, no, to for your inflammation. So other medications that can lower your inflammation, of course, taking your ascorbic acid, your um, beta carotene, but noted that it is ineffective in reducing the adenomas, no? Especially if who had undergone already removal of the adenoma. So wala na siya additional benefit. But estrogen replacement therapy have been associated with reduced risk for colorectal cancer in women by decreasing your IGF, no, insulin growth factor 1. So screening. So your occult blood still is part of the screening program. Of course, digital rectal examination for rectal tumors. You can have barium enema if patient presents with constipation, diarrhea alternately, or your colonoscopy, no? Or flexible sigmoidoscopy for rectal. So usually, so this presentation, usually your colorectal, no, includes, so cecum in your ascending colon might present early obstructive symptoms, no, very noticeable alterations in your bowel movements. Lesions of the right colon usually ulcerate, no, leading to your chronic blood loss without change in the appearance of your stool. But the left-sided, usually they present with obstruction, no? So tumors of the ascending colon present with fatigue, no, because of your anemia. Angina pectoris, probably because of your anemia still, no? So usually the anemia is hypochromic microcytic type of anemia due to your iron deficiency from your chronic blood loss. So in the treatment, uh, in the metastatic setting, we also have this, no? It's part of our evaluation. Is this a right-sided or a left-sided? Because the microsatellite instability changes for left-sided and right-sided. So same with your gastric and your esophagus, no, the TNM staging for your colorectal. So look into, no, when you describe the extent of the tumor, if it's not deeper than your submucosa or through your muscularis or your lymph node metastasis, no, involvement. So when you look at this pathology-wise, no, that's the extension of your tumor, then we can stage your patients already. So what are the poor outcomes when we look into colon cancer? Of course, the spread to your lymph nodes, no, is one, especially the number of lymph nodes involved. Penetration to your bowel wall. So usually, patients who present with obstruction with um, uh, penetration to the bowel rupture, no, bowel rupture is very poor prognostic, no, or patient will have poorly differentiated histology. Of course, perforation, that because of the tumor extension to your serosa, and your adherence of your tumor to your adjacent organs, no, that's local extension. Venous invasion, probably spread, no? Especially this is common in the rectal. Remember your perirectal venous circulation, no, will have escape to the lung. So usually, if you have rectal cancers with nodal involvement, we do screen right away with CT scan of the chest, no, to rule out malignancies or metastatic spread to the lung, no. So very important um, predictor of outcomes, no, for rectal cancer, the venous invasion. And of course, the preoperative elevation of your CEA. What is again CEA? What is CEA? What the CEA stands for?
Carcinoembryonic antigen, Doc.
Okay, very good. So usually we get your CEA, di ba? You detected already a mass, no, in your colon. So we get your CEA. Then you do surgery, then we get a post-operative um, CA, because if your CA was not reduced, no, or is not normal after your surgery, probably you still have disease somewhere hiding, no. So if your CA is uh not lowered after the surgery, then it's poor outcome. But if your preoperatively it's very really high, no, like probably because the cutoff is 5, no. Again, I mentioned before that smokers will have a higher CEAs, probably at 10. So we have a like a cutoff higher for smokers, so 5 to 10. So if they have very high, like 30 CA, probably you have a very high burden of disease for your colon cancer, no. Other mutations we look into poor outcome are your BRAF gene mutation and a right-sided location of your tumor because associated with your instability, no, chromosomal instability. So usually recurrence is noted in the first 4 years. So that's why we have very close follow-up, no, with the patients. We have yearly colonoscopy who have ongoing polyp, no, we can always find polyp, or on the site, no, surgical site, we look into that. That's local recurrence or lymph node involvement in the region if not properly harvested during surgery. So that's another area of recurrence, or sadly for metastatic disease, no. So the detection of your microsatellite instability in tumor tissues may indicate in some cases a more favorable outcome. So the tumor cells no in this area because of the instability might be lower, but it's not responsive to treatment, no, so it's more of like opposite siya og effect. So tumors arising in the left colon are associated with a better prognosis than those appearing in the right, uh, due to your molecular patterns. No? So prognosis in colorectal cancer is not influenced by the size of the primary lesion, but to the nodal and the histologic differentiation. No? Because it might be big, like, but only encompassing your mucosa, not penetrating to your muscularis propria, no? So it's not like you can see CT scan readings for patients who have colon cancer, probably a 10 cm mass in the colon or thickening, no, but it will not, once you do surgery, it didn't penetrate to your muscularis, and there's no nodal involvement, so it doesn't like preclude a poor prognostic. No? So you have to look into the nodal and the histologic presentation, especially the poorly differentiated type, the mucinous type, no, of colon cancer. So what is the treatment? Surgery. No, nothing can beat a good surgery for colorectal cancers. Um, so proper nodal harvest. So uh, have you gone through how many lymph node is ideal, more or less, to say this is a good harvest? What number? You can say, okay, this patient had good surgery. So like in the breast, we wanted up to 12 to 15. So more or less for colon, we wanted more than 15, but if if they can do up to 20, it's good, no? It's a good harvest. Because we want to have as much as many samples, no, for lymph node. So usually patients after complete resection. So the decision for resection, like subtotal or total colectomy, um, now is we can say uh, affected also by mutations, no? In the guidelines now, before we subject patient to surgery, we do mutation testings already because um, the chances of recurrence, example, you didn't do mutation screening and you only did subtotal colectomy, parang like it's a, you can say, is a missed opportunity that if you did the mutation testing, and if it's positive in mutation, the total colectomy is life saving for the patient, di ba? So of course it depends also on the presentation of the patient, because there's some cases, like example, patient came in with abdominal pain, obstruction. You don't, you cannot wait for, 'di ba, biopsy, then send to for the mutation testing, because it will take 2 to 3 weeks and the patient already have obstruction, 'di ba? So, in our setting in the Philippines, it's difficult, no? So that's why we can say medyo suboptimal, because of the guidelines ba na category 1, we should test already the mutation. But if you have time, like example, a stage 2 noted on casual, I mean regular screening, you can wait, no, for the mutation testing. But if clinical presentation wise, patient had obstructive symptoms and you have to do surgery, of course you cannot wait for the mutation testing, because in our locality, in Cebu, example, we have to send it out to Manila. So it will take 2 weeks, the earliest, no? If you're in Manila, the earliest is 1 week. So, di ba, the time, no, is very important anyways. So, it's good to know that surgery is still the best treatment for this total resection of your tumor. So, usually you will have to um, perform a complete colonoscopy for patients who didn't have the preoperative colonoscopy because probably they present with obstruction, no? And have this probably 6 months after surgery or a year after surgery. Okay, so measuring your plasma CA every 3 months is a good sensitivity marker for detectable tumor recurrence, no? Okay, so what are the treatment? So still the backbone of treatment is your 5-fluorouracil, um, which offer partial responses, 15 to 20% of these patients. And you have the administration of your folinic acid or your leucovorin, which improves the efficacy of your 5-FU. We add your oxaliplatin as your or Folfox, no? Um, or we use the capecitabine, which is the oral component of your oral um, form of your 5-FU with your oxaliplatin. So we use Folfox or C-LOX, no? Celoda plus oxaliplatin. We only use irinotecan, which is a CPT11 topoisomerase inhibitor, with your 5-FU and leucovorin for metastatic patient, no? So, usually this 5-FU acts on your thymidylate synthase, no, as a target enzyme to kill your tumor cells, no? So, monoclonal antibodies, if you have already advanced type of colon cancer, we use your monoclonal antibodies to target on your epidermal growth factor receptors or your vascular endothelial growth factor. So they look into the KRAS mutations of these patients, KRAS and RAS, no? So for the wild type, um, we use cetuximab. For the mutant type, we use the bevacizumab, no? So these are the, options for our patients. Nowadays, we do PDL testing for immunotherapy already. It's not yet in your book, but nowadays, the advancement of your colorectal involves the use of your um, immunotherapies for metastatic setting. Uh, what else? We have on second line, we have tyrosine kinase inhibitors available, your regorafenib for your colon cancers, no? So a lot, probably among all malignancies, the colon cancer, the colorectal cancers, they have um uh like less option, only CLOX and irinotecan, no? This one. So FOLFIRI. So after they progress on the CLOX and irinotecan, the next options are all targeted already, no? There's not much anymore chemotherapy available for them. So, but maybe because colon cancer is a very slow type and longer survival and good prognosis and can easily be detected, that's why probably the treatment is so wide range already. So let me add, no, for this colon cancer. So the rectal cancers, usually what is important, when you look back in the anatomy, for rectal cancers, we look into the anal verge, um, di ba, during flexible sigmoidoscopy, from the anal verge, how many cm they are from the anal verge? Because of course, your rectal cancers affect your sphincter, no? So anal sphincter. For quality of life, we want to preserve it. So for tumors, rectal tumors, a very row rectal. So sigmoid, then rectum, di ba? So sigmoid is 20 cm from your 20 to 25 cm from your anal verge. So when we do flexible sigmoidoscopy, we always wanted to know from our gastro friends what is the level of the tumor, no? So that's the most important question. So if you have rectal cancer patients, no, presenting with rectal mass on digital rectal exam, so how many inches is your finger, no? Na you can able to touch the mass, no? Sometimes, um, um, even you cannot do rectal examination because the tumor is really low lying, no? So for low lying tumors, I remember I have a patient na uh, the I don't know who made the term. Patient is Jollibee, doc. Oh, what's Jollibee, no? Maybe because a B, di ba, na the tumor is already on his anus, no? So you cannot anymore do anything. So usually for that, it's a very low-lying tumor that the mass is out already, no? So for that low-lying, you cannot anymore maintain your or preserve your anal sphincter. So if usually what we do, compared to your colon cancer na surgery diretso, for rectal, we do neoadjuvant treatment. So our neoadjuvant treatment for rectal is your chemoradiation. We give capecitabine, your Xeloda, then we give radiation, no? On the days of radiation, they have to take the capecitabine. So we expect usually with the radiation, we expect a decrease in the mass. So already then we proceed with the surgery, no? The anterior APR resection, um, then closure of your anus, no? Then colostomy forever. Of course, if this patient usually, di ba, present with obstruction, they have already colostomy, no? Then while on capecitabine. But for middle-lying rectal tumors, probably 7 cm, because you want a 2 cm margin pa naman, di ba? So the 5 cm is too low already. So 7 cm above, or then -2, so you can already preserve your anal sphincter. So 7 cm, 8 cm above, you can have neoadjuvant still, no? It's for rectal, to have capecitabine plus radiation therapy. Then we proceed with the surgery with the hope of preserving your anal sphincter. Then continue with adjuvant chemotherapy FOLFOX, no? So that's how different your rectal is treated compared to your colon cancer na surgery diretso. But some surgeons proceed with direct surgery if it's sigmoid, no? Meaning medyo 15 cm above the anal verge. But if they see that, oops, I cannot have a good nodal harvest, no? Because of the big tumor, then you have to harvest the lymph nodes, no? So it will do a lot of work, or chances of recurrence is high. So they usually subject the patient first to chemoradiation, no? And I was surprised, no? Lately I have a patient who have robotic surgery already with rectal surgeries. So patient have less time in the hospital, less um, uh, probably cost, no? Because less time, then faster improvement, no? Less pain, no? So I was amazed that I thought the patient would be discharged after a week, but he was discharged after 4 days, So very good post surgery complications. But something weird for me, because patient had a month of drain because of the chance, they want to avoid any fluid retention in the area, no, from the robotic surgery. So but it has a good response already. Colorectal now at least have laparoscopic, no, or robotic type of surgery is possible. So any questions for our GI?
None so far, Doc.
Okay. So let's go to our next.
Hello, Doc. I think na question sa chat box, Doc.
Sorry. Okay, can hemorrhoids increase risk of developing? No. Hemorrhoids are, of course, just are venous, no? Outpouchings in your anal area. So external or internal hemorrhoids is not a risk factor. So usually, risk factor still for our colorectal, no? Still um, food, no? But nowadays, increased inflammation might probably in the rectal area from different sexual behaviors has less data still to like, di ba, increase inflammation, no? So for uh, for developing into rectal malignancies. But usually now we rule out HIV, no, for those who have unusual sexual behaviors, no, for um mga patients. So basin increase inflammation or increase mga inflammatory diseases, 'di ba? So that can have for colorectal, but hemorrhoids, no. So, di ba, our women or mothers who have who have hemorrhoids from giving birth, no, din develop naman cancers in the rectal area. Okay, let's go to the next common cancer, your prostate cancer, no, for our men. So usually, risk increases for our first degree relative who have developed prostate cancer, and fivefold if two or more are affected in the family. So usually, 40% of the ones who are hereditary are early onset type. No, early onset for prostate is at 60-year-old. No, that's early onset. So, then 5 to 10% um, um, of all of the rest, no, are detected at 70 years old. No? So there's an incidence of African American males, no, high incidence, and usually these patients are linked to the hereditary prostate cancer one susceptibility locus, and or your NSPs, no, in the vitamin D receptor for most African Americans, and the variants of your androgen receptors or your CYP3A4, which involves in your deactivation of testosterone, especially in your CYP17 involved in your biosynthesis. So, like your breast, your prostate cancer is a hormonal, no, type of malignancy. No? So you have to review a lot your physiology to understand your prostate cancer. So usually they've noted high consumption in your dietary fat or exposure to your polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. And some have noted on they say infection, no, also prostatitis, but patients who have BPH doesn't necessarily mean they will have prostate cancer, no. So it's not a risk factor for an enlarged prostate. Protective factors, they say um, eating your tomatoes, no, inhibiting your cholesterol biosynthesis, your statin drugs, no, because it affects the CYP17 pathways, no, of your testosterone synthesis, no, or your vegetables. Preventive strategies like your breast, um, uh, in prostate cancer, you have your 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, no, as predominant therapy. So usually the studies on PCPT trials, men more than 55 years old are given finasteride, no, very locally available, and inhibits your type 1 isoform, no, and decreases your incidence of your developing into malignancy. Usually, di ba, BPH, no? We give already finasteride, dutasteride to your BPH. So probably that's why they don't have a progression. But one thing we noted, or they noted in the trial, that usually a patient on finasteride or dutasteride, they have higher Gleason score, no, um, in the if they progress to a malignant lesion. Probably mutation in the hormonal or the androgen receptors from the chronic exposure to your finasteride and dutasteride. So another preventive strategies, they look into the selenium and vitamin E cancer prevention, and though these have a lack of benefit, no, for E, C, and selenium in the general population, so not yet as recommended. So to pursue our screening and early detection, of course, a direct digital rectal examination. No? You can easily palpate your prostate. Have you tried palpating prostate in your rectal exam? Wala pa man mo clinics, no? Do you have di ba, clinics? Have you tried, or have you tried to palpate a prostate?
Wala pa, Doc.
Wala pa. So, in your rectal examination, you can, of course, for the male patients, no, you can easily palpate a smooth mound in your during your rectal examination. For a female, of course, it's empty, no? But for male, it's like when you do your rectal exam, you can easily palpate, so you will easily know if it's enlarged or not, no? Probably I remember during my internship, 'di ba, urology rotation, 'di ba, prostate cancer awareness month. So we palpated a lot of prostate, no? But of course, the men are not comfortable with us ladies, no, doing the digital exam. So we make sure, no, we are always accompanied by another male intern, no, during that, because of course to avoid, 'di ba, mga issues, no? So probably when you be in the internship, you'll probably palpate more, because you can easily detect your prostate enlargement, no, with your digital rectal examination. Of course, any change in your prostate, no, PSA, no, prostate specific antigen, it's a good screening for your prostate cancer. Genetic risk is good to note. Of course, urologic history. It's important to in your history examination to ask possible outlet obstruction, incontinence, potency, or change in your ejaculatory pattern. So how do you ask continence in your history? Volunteer? How do you ask? So that how do you extract a good urologic history? Manawag na lang ko kung wala mo volunteer. Ano lang, ask, history taking. How do you ask?
If makakontrol pa ba siya, Doc, sa ihi niya, Doc?
Okay. So, that's continence, no? Meaning, mag-ask ka, makaihi ra ka? Moingon siya, oh. So, paunsa man nimo i-ask, balik. Can you control imong ihi, no? Ingana, no? So, kung makakontrol pa ka, kay dili man ka moingon na, makakontrol pa ka sa imong ihi, marag, oh, weird, makaihi man ko, Doc. So, that's what they usually tell you, no? I can still pee, no? But can you control it, no? So, that's a very important question. So, what else?
Dok, kanang you ask them po if kanang putol-putol ang ihi ba or diretso.
Yes, no, the dribbling. So that's also a good question, no? Meaning, if you pee, do you feel unsa pa man kanang unsa pa mga question? So aside from diretso ra ba ka mo ihi or you have to strain every time to pee, no? So what else?
Bedwetting, Doc.
Oh, so that's continence and unable to control. What else?
Pain, Doc. If mangutana kayo if na pain during
Oh,
urination.
yes, pain because probable obstruction, no?
Obstructive uropathy.
Yes, no, na pain on peeing. What else?
If ma-empty siya completely, Doc, ipoy.
Oh, so kana I really like the answer. So kung ma-complete, how do you ask that? Kung ma-complete ra nimo imong voiding? Marag, huh? I don't know, Doc. I don't know if ma-complete. How do you ask it?
If napay nakabilin, Doc, like sakit, do you feel kanang empty ba imo?
Ma-relieved ba siya
Antog,
after
na-relieve.
peeing, no?
Yes,
What
Doc.
else? What can you ask to say naapaging nahabilin, no? How do you extract that history na? Probably residual volume is high because patient keeps on
Hesitating, Doc.
hesitating because of pain. No? It's not probably hesitating is not the word. It's not the word I'm looking for. Patient, paano sa man mo maano ang poor increased residual volume? How do you ask that?
Kanang, if ma-feel ba niya nga naapagyapoy nahibilin,
So, kung naapay mabilin, unsa man siya. What does patient experience?
Kanang sagig ihi-ihi, Doc.
Okay, so that question, how do you ask that?
Urgency.
magbalik-balik ba o kuan sa CR?
Very good. So, you ask that, no? How many times do you have to go to the bathroom? No? Example, at night. Because usually, di ba, at night, you don't go to the bathroom frequently, no? Because you don't drink a lot of water, but you wake up at night to pee, no? That's a very important urologic history. So if you have an elderly patient who wakes up 5 times at night to pee, is it normal?
No, Doc.
No. So what is your acceptable normal? What do you think? Na normal lang mo bangon ani ka times at night to pee?
Twice, Doc.
Yeah, twice. 2 to 3 times at night is acceptable. But 5 times or more, it's a very high kanang sign na you have probably enlarged prostate. Not yet prostate cancer. So you will screen them for prostate cancer. No? So it's a very important question in your urologic history. So you have that question. How many times do you have to go to the bathroom? To the bathroom at night? No, because during the day probably they go more than 3 times. No, because they drink a lot of water, coffee, tea, whatever. No, so you have that. Next question is, lisod ba isugod og pangihi? Is it difficult to start urinating? Do you spend a lot, like it's an effort to start urinating, and do you feel like your pee is like dribbling, no? Like you need to, it's putol-putol, no? That's a question. Then is there pain? Usually what if you have pain, which is what kind of pain? Is it terminal, initiating, initial pain, or during urination for prostate enlargement? What do you think? Is the pain at the start of urination, the whole time urinating, or after terminal? I mean, pa-end na. for enlarged prostate? What do you think? This is also important for your differentials. So when do you note pain?
At the start, Doc.
Very good, from the start. So because, diba, they have already difficulty initiating, so there's the pain, but they become like they're relieved because of the expansion of your bladder, so they're relieved once makastart na, no? So it's not the terminal pain because you use that terminal pain for your urethritis already, no? So very good. So at least you know now how to ask your your parents your patients in the future, no? Like if they reklamo, no, they complain na I have to wake up at night to pee, and so how many times, diba? That's a very good question. You have to check your prostate, no, if more than 5 times of urinating. Okay, so when you do your direct rectal examination, you check on your prostate size, your consistency, and abnormalities, no, within your prostate. And usually, the one easily palpable is your peripheral zone, which noted a mounding, or na mound or irregular consistency during rectal examination. If it's big, but it's very soft, probably these are only benign enlargement of your prostate, no? So your carcinomas are characteristically hard and nodular and very irregular. And usually, 20 to 25% of these men have a normal DRE, but these are only BPH, no? So your PSA is your kallikrein-related serine protease that causes liquefaction of your seminal coagulum, no? It produces both a non-malignant and a malignant epithelial cells. Usually, you can, if you have prostatitis and BPH, you have elevated PSA, no? So, what do you think other activities no, that can affect your PSA level?
After sexual intercourse, Doc.
Very good. What else?
Infection, Doc.
Infection. Very good. What else? So probably patient who are on di ba mga I remember during internship, horseback riding. Wala may horseback riding in the Philippines. Anyways, so motor, no, bicycle, no, so that can have initial like inflammation, no, for increased PSA, but of course not increased enough. So the value you have to look into, no, probably if the value is 5, no, 4 in our test, no, probably if patient have 8, 10, then they are on their work involves a lot in the motorcycle, no, then or biking or recent biking activity, no, so probably there's an elevation there, no, or kana, no, sexual intercourse, then infection, no, prostatitis, and BPH, no? So usually when you remove your prostate, you can have undetectable levels in 6 weeks of your PSA, no? So benefits of your PSA usually starts from 55 to 69 years old, no? Some of the screening now, laboratory, no, they will detect like 45-year-old, then elevated PSA. You have to ask, no, what can cause false elevation of your PSA. So usually once you have abnormal direct rectal examination, you have elevated PSA, then you can subject patient to prostate biopsy. So usually we do a left and right lobe sample, no, 6 in the left, 6 in the right, then we grade our samples, no, of the scoring, no, that's what we call the Gleason score, no. So prostate biopsy, of course, is still subject to sampling error. That's why the 12 core biopsies. So you will read that in the histopath if really your urologist did a good sampling, no, of your prostate gland, no. Of course, imaging now, we recommend prostate MRI rather than your ultrasound or CT scan, no? So to really see the extension of your tumor, because usually your pelvic region, kung mga soft tissue, so prostate MRI is advisable. So 95% of these prostate cancers are adenocarcinomas. Very few are squamous or transitionals, or rare, the sarcomas. And metastasis to the prostate, no, meaning to the prostate, so are rare, so probably not a metastatic site, unless it becomes a direct extension from your colorectal cancers or from your bladder itself, no. So so we have to differentiate. Example, you have a patient who have a bladder mass extending to the prostate, or you also have to think, is this a prostate cancer extending to the bladder, no? So you have to differentiate one from the other. So we do testing to really prove the origin of your mass, no? So usually the aggressiveness is measured again by the Gleason scoring, which have a two types, no, meaning the two factors, the histologic, no, and the dominant and the secondary, no, histologic pattern. So the dominant will be scored 1 to 5, the secondary will be scored to 1 to 5, then it will be summed up, no. So the higher histologic pattern, meaning the more aggressive it is. So most poorly differentiated area of the tumor, meaning the dominant part is poorly differentiated, it determines your biologic behavior. Of course, the presence or the absence of your perineural invasion and the extracapsular spread should be also recorded to know the aggressiveness of your tumor. So, transrectal ultrasound is the imaging technique to assess your primary tumor, and of course, used for biopsies, but not staging. So we use pelvic MRI now for better visualization of your lymph node. Before, it's CT scan, but recent data have suggested that MRI is best for soft tissue. So MRI is superior to your CT to detect your cancer, no, in your prostate and extension of the disease. So your bone scintigraphy is used to evaluate spread to your oocytes, no. So usually your bone scans, especially by elderly, no, they might have it's not common for male to have osteoporosis, no. So chronic bone pains for male, you have to differentiate it from muscle pain, so chronic bone pains is usually not osteoporosis, no. So that's why you have to screen them, no, for possible prostate cancer. Or usually in my experience, I have patients who have no urinary symptoms but presents with anemia, no, and chronic bone pains, no. He's a 70-year-old who came in for anemia, so he was worked up for occult blood test, no, because he's anemic, no. So colon cancer was initially noted, no. So colon cancer, pag colonoscopy negative, CT scan of the chest and whole ab, there's no lung mass, because diba, the next most common for male is lung cancer. So lung mass negative, so referred to my service to help them find the primary, no. What's the primary? So I only did the PSA, and then it's elevated. So patient had prostate cancer. So that patient, after treatment, he's okay, no. So the bone metastasis was also noted, no, on bone scan. So stage 4 prostate cancer. So patient was treated with hormonal treatment alone because he's a very, very frail elderly 70-year-old. And once he's back, he underwent chemotherapy because before 5 years ago, prostate cancer, we do chemotherapy. But nowadays, ano na lang siya, third line, meaning we don't anymore do as first line. We do maximize our hormonal treatment for our prostate cancer patient. No? So really, the treatment has evolved a lot for our prostate cancer. Of course, we do offer radical prostatectomy for those tumor that can be excised with clear margin, so very important. And of course, the preservation of your sphincters, no, to avoid continence, no, and preservation of your potency, no, because of your autonomic bundles that can be affected during the surgery. So usually our we have to educate properly our patient, no, because uh radical prostatectomy, radiation can affect a lot their sexual, no, can cause sexual dysfunction, and of course the continence, no, that's the most like problem. So we have to educate them and make a decision, no, that of course they will not regret, no, because being male, no, importance of the libido, no, we don't want to we have to be transparent about it, because even if we put patient on hormonal treatment, no, it will affect their libido a lot. So we have to lay all the side effects, no, of our plans for them, surgery and radiation therapy and the hormonal treatment thereafter. So usually factors that affects your incontinence, of course your age, no, already can affect that, and your urethral length, plus of course when you do the surgery it can affect more, no. So usually erectile function naman begins to return 6 months after surgery if your neurovascular tissue was preserved properly, no. But potency is reduced by half if one of the neurovascular bundle was sacrificed, no. So of course with the use of sildenafil, we have to be that can be given. Of course we have to be careful because diba, they're elderly, they might prone to heart attack, no. So radiation therapy is one also option for our patient with prostate cancers. They are equivalent, no. Some stage of the patient we don't do any more surgery. We offer brachytherapy. We already have brachytherapy and external beam radiation therapy for them, no. So it will help in the cancer control already for the patient. So so the brachytherapy is like from your cervical, it do direct implantation of this seeding, no, to the prostate, and usually they have very good side effect profile, but proctitis might occur during the treatment or presenting with urinary frequency or urgency for these patients, no. So the use of your androgen deprivation therapy, you use that. Usually we have neoadjuvant, meaning we give androgen deprivation therapy before radiation, 1 year before radiation, if the mass is of course we look into the risk factor, no, the tumor size, no, of the mass, and the location, and the Gleason score, no, that's important for us, PSA and the Gleason score, in evaluating patient for what treatment is best, no. So we do give your androgen deprivation therapy. So androgen deprivation therapy is your agonist, no, GnRH antagonist, and your bicalutamide, no. So but we usually use the GnRH, no, the treatment, no. So for this patient we can give a short course, 6 months to a year of your ADT. No, so this new neoadjuvant hormone therapy, it will help decrease the size so that you during radiation you don't have a very large exposure that might cause incontinence or proctitis, no, during treatment. So usually the reported outcomes from these are your sexual dysfunction because of your neurovascular bundles, urinary incontinence, and bowel dysfunction because near the rectal area. No? It can be affected by your external beam radiation. So some patients, because of their low Gleason score, they're elderly, not subject anymore to um to possible treatment. We do active surveillance, no? A very acceptable uh, like plan, no, for a patient. So we usually do watchful waiting, even though they have prostate cancer, like stage 1, that we can like just have a like every 6 months monitoring. And usually we took into the Gleason score, the small tumor size, no? A Gleason score of 6 is acceptable to do active surveillance. And age, no? We look at the age. So if in our guidelines, if the patient will live for more than 5 years, no? If you expect the patient to be alive less than 5 years, so you do only active surveillance. You don't want anymore to subject patient to treatment, no, to the surgery, especially if you have a low Gleason score. Probably if your patient expected to live more than 10 years, no, meaning very strong, no comorbidities, so you want to be aggressive. So I remember now my oldest patient who have prostate cancer is 88 years old, no? They're all Caucasians. So one is an American and one is an Australian, no? So they ask me about fatigue, libido, at 88, are you still conscious? Sorry. So anyways, so very important, no? Because they are on treatment already for so long, no? But of course we don't want any more aggressive treatment. So if ever they have a slight request from me, like, doc, can we move my treatment every like this instead of like this? Okay, sometimes I agree because they can go ahead with active surveillance, no, knowing their age, no. My Australian patient is courting me to stop his treatment. So that is subject to, of course, discussions, no, from me and of course the patient. No? So active surveillance is a good choice, no, for a patient for a certain age and for the Gleason scoring. So if you have a rising PSA after your definitive therapy. So definitive therapy is your surgery, your radiation, diba? So that's your definitive. So if there is a rise in your PSA, so you have to look into other possible evidence of disease. So you should look into we call it chemical failure, meaning you weren't able to properly control the PSA with your hormonal treatment, your ADT. Second, you have a metastatic disease, no? Meaning you need to check your bone scan for bone metastasis, another imaging, pelvic MRI for a new mass in the prostate, no? It's a very important. So, when you have a rising PSA, you have to look into a lot of factors, no? Possible like infection, no? Meaning nag-UTI ang patient, probably can increase your PSA from the normal, or other like sexual behavior that had increased his PSA, or else from your chemical effect, no? So meaning you have a central effect, your GnRH, no, your gonadotrophin releasing hormones, or your local, you have failure of your androgen receptors already in your prostate, and probably other organ sites, meaning the metastatic sites that can be a source now of your hormones, no? So, but of course, we always look into the time of recurrence and the Gleason scoring, no, that is associated with progression of these patients. Okay. So patient with metastasis, no, so we look into the level of your testosterone. So aside from the PSA for our metastatic disease patient, no, stage 4 prostate cancer, we get the serum testosterone. So usually, because our goal is to castrate, meaning to stop any sources of your androgens, no? So we can do this by your medical or surgical means, no? We call it surgical castration or medical castration. So when you do for metastatic disease, of course, we do not subject patient anymore to surgery. So we do a medical castration, no? So that's a concept now we do. So how do you castrate patient medically? So we give your GnRH, no? So centrally acting hormone therapy, no? So we usually give your ADT, which is your GnRH, plus your abiraterone with prednisone. This is our first line, but nowadays we have from your book probably is delayed. So nowadays we have another apalutamide, no? Is our first line already for our patients who have um prostate cancer, no, with your ADT. So ADT should be still there. The combination of your docetaxel with your, which is the chemotherapy arm, with your ADT is not anymore first line, no. So of treatment. So again, remember your physiology. This is how you manage, no, your prostate cancer. So from your hypothalamus, GnRH, you want to block this to activate your pituitary, releasing your testosterone in your testis. So this is your primary ADT. Then you give your abiraterone or your apalutamide, which are your your abiraterone, your CYP17 inhibitors. Diba, your testis is your like steroid synthesis, no, making your testosterone. Then of course affects also your, from the adrenal glands, your dihydro estenedione, no, your DHT causes enlargement in your prostate, and your dutasteride, remember your 5-HT agonist, no, is there. So when we do treatment with your prostate cancer, our priority is first to lower the availability of your hormone, then the testosterone availability, you have to stop it, then the DHT effects in your prostate itself, no. So we give dutasteride, we give abiraterone, no, and your GnRH. So the new medications now, the apalutamide, will act on your androgen receptors, no. Now we still give your GnRH with your apalutamide, your next generation anti-androgens, which helps which blocks your the attachment of your DHT to your androgen receptors. Of course, when it's blocked, you don't have any more multiplication of your tumor. So if you just look into this image, you understand how we treat prostate cancer, no? So which one to use, as long as you block central, no, this is our maintenance, no, the GnRH, because everything will be stopped na. Then if the combination, it's either the apalutamide or the abiraterone, no. Before the advent of the new generation of anti-androgens, we use chemotherapy. We kill the prostate tumor cells, no. So but we still give GnRH while killing your tumor cells. But nowadays, because of the side effects, your patients are elderly. So, of course, we have to be quality of life measures, no? So that's why chemotherapy was taken out of picture. We give your abiraterone and your apalutamide. So, of course, when we give your GnRH, there is an initial rise of your levels of your testosterone because your body wants to compensate, di ba? The negative feedback effect of your GnRH. So you will have an increased flare, no? Increased symptoms of your patient. So we do first give bicalutamide, no? To lower the availability of our androgens in the body. So when your body like, okay, there's not much available, and your body doesn't need it, then when you give your GnRH, it will not cause the flare, no? So that's the goal of the medical castration. So the circle of life of your testosterone making. But of course, with this androgen deprivation syndromes, your patient will have menopausal symptoms, your hot flushes, your weakness, fatigue, loss of muscle mass, you have anemia, changes in personality, irritability, no, like menopause, no, depression even. So they have changes in their lipids and obesity and insulin resistance and risk for diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And of course, they will prone now to develop osteoporosis because we are blocking all these levels already from their body. So that's why when we treat patients with prostate cancer, we don't forget that we are like, it's like menopause, no? They will have some patient gynecomastia, no, as side effect. They have like irritability. No, the one they always complain, no, is the fatigue. Really, it will not, aside from the disease itself, no, you have prostate cancer, but the effect of your GnRH causes fatigue, no? Then we have to work them up on their cholesterols to make sure they are on maintenance, and of course giving of your calcium and your bone support, like your zoledronic acid or your denosumab, to help in the prevention of your osteoporosis, no? So your anti-androgen bicalutamide can still be an option, no, for blockade, no, especially in our country where it's very the cost ba. So bicalutamide is very cheap, no, compared to the available treatment. Siguro to give you an overview, an apalutamide monthly or abiraterone will cost mga 60,000 to 80,000. Then that's a maintenance for a longer time, no, for life, no. So plus your GnRH, that would cost you 20,000 every quarter, no. So for 'di ba, for an average for Filipinos, it's so difficult, no, to have that budget. So that's why, in cases we give bicalutamide, it cost I think 60 pesos, no? But the bicalutamide available is 50 milligram, but we have to give 150. So more or less, we give mga 180 pesos per day, no? So, diba? So, that's why treatment, no, will be discussed good properly with the patient. But now with the help of mga government social services, no, I mean, these patients now can get the GnRH, no, for free. So with ano lang yun, we have to encourage them to complete their treatment, no. So of course, for those patient cannot have GnRH, you can still have the surgical orchiectomy, no, as your surgical castration. But of course, that is subject to kanang cost, side effects, discussion with the patient. But it's a good also option for them, no, if they cannot maintain. So nowadays, no, we don't have anymore the docetaxel, so it's only your ADT with your abiraterone, with prednisone. Why is the addition of prednisone there with your abiraterone? Because in your steroid synthesis, the 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 section in your cholesterol synthesis, there is the pregnenolone, no, can be blocked uh, by your steroids, so that it will not converted to your testosterone, no. So very all your sources of testosterone should be blocked, no. That's the goal for treatment of your prostate cancer. But then again, patient will have castrate resistance, no. Even though you have controlled all the hormones, still the disease will be resistant. So again, patient will present with a rise in PSA, presentation of bone metastasis. You can have now lung and node involvement that can be present. So usually, how do we manage if patient is castrate resistant? So we change in the attack of the hormones. So if we initially used abiraterone and GnRH, so we change to GnRH and apalutamide. Or if still they progress on it, nowadays we have immunotherapy already with prostate cancer available, or we go back to chemotherapy, erase all sources of androgen receptors in the body, then we resume back to hormonal later on once the disease is controlled. Okay. But of course, but prostate cancer is very long standing, meaning they can be castrate sensitive for how many years? 10 years, 15 years, no? But for the aggressive diseases, usually they'll be castrate sensitive only for a year or two. That's very aggressive already, no? So if they progress, I have a patient only 6 months, no? 6 months castrate sensitive. He was castrate resistant already after 6 months. So I put him on a new treatment, but he was okay, no, with the new treatment. So castrate resistant, he's now on his 4th year. So probably that, no. So you have just to control where the hormones are, no, activated. Okay, any question? I try to simplify it, no, so that at least when you read your book, you can still get what I'm talking about. Okay, any question?
So
Okay.
far, Doc.
Yay. Okay, see you guys. I don't know when there's an exam. I still have to make your questions. So I'm tasked to give 50 to 60 questions, I think, for the whole lectures I gave. Okay. Bye-bye. Take care always, guys.
Thank you, Doc.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.